Jake Paul versus Mike Perry was just officially announced, and this is a big deal, and I actually do have to give a little bit of respect to Jake here. Now, if you guys will recall, Jake has been in quite the journey the last few months between fighting Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson pulling out to him now having to fight a new guy. And while, yes, the Mike Tyson fight did get rebooked, I guess Jake is deciding to stick on this date and say, I'm still fighting here, and he has decided to pick a new opponent in Mike Perry, and Mike Perry is no walk in the park. Like, guys, I'm going to break down to you guys, even if Jake wins, I don't think this is necessarily going to be an easy fight, but Jake Paul definitely did gain a bit of respect for taking this fight, in my opinion, and we're going to break that down, as well as break down the matchup and what's going on with this Mike Tyson card. Guys, we're going to break down all this and more, but first, I want to remind you guys to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Guys, we're almost at 13K. You guys have been killing it with the support. I cannot thank you guys enough. And let me know in the comment section below what videos you guys want to see, and make sure to hit the notification bell for more videos. Alright, but let's get into it, guys. As I said, Jake Paul has been in quite the journey the last few months. First, he was set to fight Mike Tyson on July 20th, and as much as I disapproved of that fight, it did seem like a lot of people were getting on board with it. It did seem like there was a lot of hype going towards that event, and while I personally still don't like the fight, and I don't like that the fight is going to happen in November, I think it's embarrassing that the fight is going to happen, but at the end of the day, the fight is going to happen no matter what, no matter how. If I like it, if anyone else doesn't like it, it does not matter. Jake is going to make a lot of money, Mike's going to make a lot of money, and that fight's going to go down. But Jake easily could have waited for that November 15th date, right? Because that is when the fight got rescheduled with Mike Tyson. It's going to be on a Friday, interestingly enough, probably due to the football season around that time. So it is going to be on a Friday night, and the co-main event is still set to be Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor. Apparently, the other fights are still in limbo. We're going to find out more details, I assume, pretty soon. But that card, like I said, that is happening in November, and Jake, of course, was going to fight Mike Tyson July 20th. As I said in the beginning, he could have waited. He could have said, look, I'm going to just wait for the November 15th fight. That's going to be a big money fight. Let me just wait. But I guess Jake Paul really wanted to stay active. I mean, the last time he fought was February. It wasn't even that long ago. So I got to give him respect. If there's anything I like in the fight game is when fighters are active. So credit to Jake right there, you know, trying to stay active still when he really could have waited, and nobody would have really blamed him. And honestly, I think the smart decision would have been to wait, because he chose a guy that not only has been training boxing and is a young guy, but a guy who could take a hell of a shot and who has been in absolute wars. Guys, we're talking about Mike Perry. Now, Mike Perry, of course, was a former UFC fighter. Of course, he did not, you know, last in the UFC, but then he moved on to bare knuckle boxing and really was one of the faces of the bare knuckle boxing company, beating guys like Luke Rockhold, Eddie Alvarez, and he had been calling for this fight for a long time. If you guys recall, these two actually had beef a couple years ago because Mike Perry, I believe, sparred Jake Paul leading up to that Ben Askren fight.
Good job, dude. Keep my ass.
No, it's good, bro.
And apparently in that spar, Jake beat Mike Perry. Now, Mike Perry does say, look, he was letting Jake work, which I do agree to a certain extent. However, I think especially at that time, I think definitely Jake was probably the better boxer. However, things have changed now, and Mike Perry has been looking a lot better lately. So I'm going to touch on that spar a little bit later and talk more about the matchup. I promise, guys, I'm going to break all of that down and talk about my thoughts. But interestingly enough, I thought that the co-main event was really interesting. Now, the co-main event features Amanda Serrano, and she's going to also be fighting on this card, despite being also scheduled for that November 15th date. Now, in my opinion, it's one thing for Jake to go fight an MMA fighter, and look, I know Amanda Serrano is most likely going to be a massive favorite in this fight. I still just don't think it's worth it, guys. I really don't think that Jake or Amanda should be fighting this close. First of all, you're going through back-to-back camps, right? And look, that is not as hard to do as it is in MMA, right? With boxing, you can more easily do that, but it's still tough. Like, what if one of these guys injures their hand? I mean, that happened to Amanda Serrano. I believe she fought someone a couple months prior to when she had already scheduled a rematch with Katie Taylor, and she had to pull out of that fight because she injured her hand because she had a fight so close. And July 20th is not far away at all from November. Like, that is just 3 months. You're basically going to end that camp, maybe have a couple weeks off to a month, and then get right back into camp if you're even doing that. You might even keep training. So respect to Jake and Amanda for taking these back-to-back fights. I just still think that it is a bad move. I think that it's a massive risk, especially for a fight that is on Netflix, a fight with Mike Tyson. If I'm Jake Paul's team, I would be strongly against this. However, as a fan, I support this. I'd much rather see the Mike Perry and Jake Paul fight than the Mike Tyson fight, honestly. So as a pure fan, I support this decision. However, if I'm Jake's team, if I'm a Jake manager, I would not, right? That's just where I'm going to leave it like that. I want to get into the matchup, though. First of all, Mike Perry, I guarantee this is not going to be an easy first-round knockout for Jake Paul, right? If this is going to be a knockout, I'm sure it's going to happen later in the round. Now, as I've mentioned in the beginning, right, Mike Perry and Jake Paul did spar, and it does seem like Jake Paul probably got the better of that sparring. However, Mike Perry has claimed, look, he just was letting Jake work, and we've seen this before, right, where Jake claims that he's beating sparring partners when they're clearly just letting him work. Look at the Hasim Rahman Jr. fight, right? Apparently, Jake and Hasim, they both sparred, and Jake even uploaded the spar to YouTube, and Jake really thinks that he was winning the spar. However, if you do look at the spar that Jake uploaded onto YouTube, you can clearly see, in my opinion, that Hasim was going very easy on Jake. So we've seen this before where Jake confuses spars and saying, yeah, look, I won this spar, when a guy is politely letting him work and trying to let him improve. So first of all, there's that, right? But I do think that Jake Paul probably had a bit of an edge back then. However, the things to consider about Mike Perry before you guys are like, oh, he's just another MMA fighter, he hasn't had a boxing match, he's 0-1. Guys, first of all, he is a young guy. This is going to be the youngest guy that Jake Paul has fought besides Tommy Fury, and he is in his prime. I mean, look at him in BKFC. He is looking very good. He has had really good performances. Mike Perry can hit hard, and he's going to go forward. He's a dog, and he doesn't really slow down, right? Even if you hit him with shots, he usually eats those. He has a really good chin, and I just think this is a pretty risky matchup for Jake because I think this is a bad matchup. Jake Paul has shown before when he is pressured, his defense kind of tends to fall apart. We saw Tommy Fury kind of expose that. In my opinion, I thought Jake looked really bad in that last fight, and I thought it was because of the weight he's adding on in hindsight. We didn't know at the time, but Jake Paul was adding weight this whole time, getting prepared for Mike Tyson, and that is one of the biggest risks in my opinion. This isn't even Jake Paul at a normal weight where he's used to fighting at 185 or 190, right? This is going to be a Jake Paul, to my knowledge, I believe, fighting at 200 pounds, way more than he is used to. So first of all, he's going to be out of weight. You know, who knows how this is going to affect his cardio, right? Maybe he's going to mismanage his energy and get tired later on. And then from there, Mike Perry could really expose Jake. I think Mike Perry has the tools to really beat Jake. I think if I'm Mike Perry, you gotta pressure Jake, right? Go forward, pressure Jake, because we've seen Jake, you know, kind of just cover up and not really be so defensive. He is open to get hit. I think body shots from Mike Perry is going to be there too. I think Mike Perry in the later rounds will have a bit of an advantage, honestly, because we've seen Jake Paul kind of huff and puff in the later rounds. I won't say completely gas, but definitely slow down a bit. But I think the game plan here for Mike Perry is to bring the fight to Jake. We have seen Jake hurt before in fights, and this was earlier in his boxing career. In my opinion, I feel like his love for boxing has kind of dwindled in the later years. I feel like you can tell from his performances and from the fight choices he makes. Like, it definitely seemed around the time where he was fighting Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, and all those guys. I felt like that he had more to prove. However, now I feel like he doesn't have that chip on his shoulder where he feels like he needs to prove himself. So I think, honestly, Jake Paul's quality in boxing has definitely went down. And I think with that being said, if you're expecting Mike Tyson to be just some slow, old MMA fighter, I think you guys are completely wrong because he has been training boxing for years now for BKFC. I understand it's not the same exact thing, but relatively the same mechanic. I think really the defense is probably the only difference, and honestly, it is way better to go from a BKFC style defense to boxing than it is the other way around, because boxing, you have bigger gloves, you can get away with a lot more than BKFC. So if anything, I think Mike Perry is going to be even more defensively sound than he would have been if he just did regular boxing. I think for Jake, though, I think he's got to keep it at range, use his jab, and definitely try not to swing in the pocket, outbox Mike Perry. That is the obvious game plan. But Jake Paul has shown that he is not exactly the greatest of boxers, right? We saw against Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury took a full advantage of him. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Jake. I honestly don't know who's going to win, guys. That is genuinely me saying I do not know who will win. I might honestly pick Mike Perry. I'm kind of leaning towards Mike Perry if I'm going to be honest, but credit to Jake. If he loses, I have no idea what's going to happen to the Mike Tyson fight. I don't care. I really do hope that Jake loses and he doesn't get that Mike Tyson fight, because I think that would be absolute karma for trying to pick a fight with a 60-year-old. However, though, I do definitely respect Jake a little bit more for taking this fight. If there's anything I like, as I've said, I like active fighters. I like when they're taking new matchups, and yeah, this is just another exciting event and good for Mike Perry. I've been looking forward to this fight, so this is a good move. So credit to Jake, and I cannot wait to see this fight, guys. But go check out my last video where I talked about Logan Paul and Bradley Martin just cringing at the situation. I don't mean to make this whole channel about the Paul brothers. I guarantee the next video will probably be about something different, although you never know. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base of MMA. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.